Japan does daylight better than almost anywhere. The neon, the trains that run to the second, the quiet little shrines tucked between the shops. But here is something the travel guides never mention. The country is about 75% mountains, and to get anywhere at all, you have to go through them. That means tunnels. Thousands of them, and a great many are old, narrow, dripping, and dark. Ask the people who actually live beside these places, and you will hear the same thing again and again. They will drive an extra hour out of their way to avoid one after sundown. These are 15 haunted tunnels in Japan that locals refuse to enter after dark, and the reasons are worse than you think. Number 15. The Old Amagi Tunnel, a national treasure by day, and something else entirely after dark. In the mountains of the Izu Peninsula sits one of the most historic tunnels in the entire country. The Old Amagi Tunnel was finished in 1905, runs about 1,460 feet long, around 446 meters, and it is built entirely of cut stone, the arch and the walls and everything between. It is the longest stone road tunnel still standing in Japan, protected today as a national important cultural property, and it even helped inspire the tunnel in a world-famous animated film about a girl who crosses into a spirit world. So why will the locals not come near it after dark? Two reasons, and they go back to how it was built. Cutting this tunnel through the mountain by hand was punishing, dangerous work, and laborers died doing it, their deaths blamed on the brutal conditions. And carving the road, by some accounts, meant disturbing old samurai graves on the slope above. So people who pass through at night report two very different hauntings. The first are the samurai, figures in full armor, seen walking the stone exactly where their graves are said to have been, as if they never accepted that the road was cut through their resting place. The second is gentler, and somehow worse for it. Deep in the dark, a woman's voice. She does not wail, and she does not threaten. She leans in close, almost kindly, and quietly asks if you are okay. By the time you understand that there is no one in the car with you to ask, you are already driving faster. A tunnel can be a national treasure and a warning at the very same time. This one is both. Number 14. The Kotsubo Tunnel, the one where a blue light comes out to meet you. Over in Shizuoka Prefecture sits the Kotsubo Tunnel, and its story begins with a real and terrible night. In September of 1967, just outside one of its mouths, a freight train slammed into a passenger train, and 13 people were killed in the wreckage. Ever since, it has been one of the most talked about haunted spots in the region, the subject of books, comics, and horror films. But the detail that keeps people away after dark is oddly specific, and it is not a sound, it is a light. Drivers who enter the tunnel at night describe a pale blue glow that appears in the air ahead of them, hanging there in the black, and drifting slowly closer as they roll forward. Some say there are figures caught inside the glow. Others just feel the temperature fall away and hear low voices murmuring from a stretch of empty tunnel where there is nobody at all. You can tell yourself it is a trick of your headlights bouncing off the damp walls. The problem is that the blue light does not behave like headlights. It waits for you, and then it comes to meet you. But at least at Kotsubo, you can see the thing coming. At number 13, you will not see anything at all, right up until something in the dark reaches out and takes hold of you. Number 13, the Old Sashiki Tunnel, the one that grabs you in the dark. Also in Kumamoto, the Old Sashiki Tunnel is barely wide enough for one modest car, and it runs about 1,420 feet, around 434 meters, in total darkness. There are no lights inside, none at all. Your headlights carve out a small cone in front of you, and the rest is a black so complete it feels almost solid, like the air itself has thickened. That alone would be enough to keep most people out. But the story attached to this tunnel is far more specific, and far worse. Drivers and walkers passing through describe the same sensation, over and over. Something unseen takes hold of an ankle. A grip, sudden and cold, low to the ground, down where there is nothing and no one. By the time they look down to see what has them, it is already gone. The cold spot stays a moment longer. No one lingers to ask questions. In a tunnel like this, the darkness is not the absence of something. The darkness is the thing. And if a hand in the dark unsettles you, number 12 is worse in a much quieter way. Two people walked into the next tunnel together, a long time ago, and according to the people who live nearby, they are both still in there. Number 12, the third tunnel of Gunma, where two people went in and never came out. In Gunma Prefecture, there is an old passage sometimes called the Sankyo, or third tunnel, with a story straight out of a folk tale and a sad one. Late in the Edo period, the legend goes, a young couple ran away together to be married against the wishes of both their families. Their escape route took them through this tunnel, and while they were somewhere inside, in the dark, the mountain came down on top of them. A sudden landslide sealed both ends at once and trapped them in the middle, with no way forward and no way back, and no one coming. They never made it out. People who pass through the tunnel today say they can still hear two voices in the blackness, calling softly to each other, still searching for an exit that closed more than 2 centuries ago. Locals keep their distance from the place after dark, the same instinctive way you keep your distance from a fresh grave. Some stories do not need a monster. 2 frightened kids in the dark is enough. Number 11. The Sendagaya Tunnel in Tokyo, built in a hurry, in exactly the wrong place. This one is not out in some forgotten mountain. It is in the middle of Tokyo, one of the largest cities on Earth. The Sendagaya Tunnel was thrown up quickly ahead of the 1964 Olympic Games, when the city was racing to modernize and pour concrete as fast as it could. The problem is what they built it under. The tunnel runs directly beneath the cemetery of an old Buddhist temple. They did not relocate the graves first. They simply ran the road underneath the dead and kept going. Drivers passing through after dark describe a woman with long dark hair and a blood-stained appearance, and the detail that truly unsettles people is the direction she comes from. Not from the road ahead of you, from above. She is said to drop down out of the ceiling onto the roofs of cars, out of the very ground where the bodies are buried. Plenty of Tokyo locals know that story by heart. A surprising number of them quietly choose a different route home. A graveyard built directly above your head is hard to forget. But number 10 is sadder, and somehow worse. In the next tunnel, a mother is still feeling her way along the walls in total darkness, searching for the children it took from her. Number 10. The Isegami Tunnel in Aichi, where a mother is still searching. In Aichi Prefecture, there are actually 2 Isegami tunnels. One is fairly modern, the other is much older and all but forgotten, opened back in 1897 and left up in the forest. The old one has no lights, and it gets so dark in the middle of the afternoon that a flashlight barely dents it. The walls weep cold water. The stories agree on the shape of the tragedy, even when the small details shift. A woman and 2 children died in or near the tunnel, drowned in a flash flood or buried by a landslide during a typhoon. The woman in white is seen out on the road, sometimes accepting a ride from a late-night truck driver, only to vanish before the car reaches the exit. The children rush at you out of the dark, but the worst version of the story is the mother. People say you can see her clinging to the wet stone wall, feeling her way slowly along it in the pitch black and still searching for the children the mountain took from her. Number 9. The Old Chuetsu Tunnel in Fukuoka, where the workers never clocked out. Back on Kyushu, in Fukuoka Prefecture, the Old Chuetsu Tunnel was dug between 1919 and 1923 to serve the growing rail network. The ground was bad from the start. It collapsed during construction, more than once, and laborers died doing the work, crushed in the dark under the mountain they were trying to hollow out. That part is documented history. The legends grew straight up out of it. The apparition people report most often is a single workman in old-fashioned construction clothes from a century ago, wandering the tunnel with a lost, exhausted expression on his face, appearing and then vanishing, as if he is still trying to dig his way out of the collapse that killed him. Visitors describe disembodied voices, the faint and distant sound of digging deep in the rock, and one warning that comes up again and again. Somewhere in the dark ahead of you, a voice suddenly shouts at you to stop, and most people do exactly that. Then they turn around and they leave, quickly. Number 8. The Kiyotaki Tunnel in Kyoto, the one the number itself curses. Now we reach the famous one. Just outside the old capital of Kyoto, the Kiyotaki Tunnel was built in 1927 and finished in 1928, and it is widely considered one of the most haunted places in all of Japan. It is single lane, so narrow that only one car can fit through at a time, and a single traffic light at the entrance is supposed to tell you when it is safe to go. The signs say it is about 500 meters long. Local legend insists the true length is exactly 444 meters, and that matters more than it sounds, because the number 4 in Japanese can be read as shi, the same sound as the word for death. 4, 4, 4. Death, death, death. Drivers report the light turning green to lure them in, straight toward an oncoming car that should not be there. But the true terror of Kiyotaki lives in the mirror. The legend says that if you glance at your reflection while passing through, and the face looking back at you is somehow wrong, distorted, not quite yours, then misfortune is already on its way, and sometimes that misfortune is your own death. Worse still, drivers describe a woman in white appearing in the rearview mirror, sitting in the back seat, where a moment before there had been no one. So the people who must drive this road at night have all learned the same simple defense. They keep their eyes locked forward, and they do not, under any circumstances, look in the mirror. Kiyotaki haunts a narrow mountain road. The next one is something else entirely. Number 7 is not a ruin and not a back road. It runs for miles beneath the open ocean, and the men who built it never came back up. Number 7. The Seikan Tunnel, the grave under the sea. This one is not a ruin. It is an engineering marvel, one of the longest tunnels on the planet, and that is exactly what makes it so unsettling. The Seikan Tunnel runs nearly 33 miles, about 54 kilometers, connecting the main island of Honshu to the northern island of Hokkaido. And for much of that distance, it runs underneath the open ocean, dropping to around 800 feet, roughly 240 meters, beneath the floor of the sea. Picture that for a moment. You are sitting in a train, in the dark, with the entire weight of the ocean pressing down somewhere above your head. Building it was brutal and slow. 34 workers were killed over the long years of construction, lost to cave-ins and to seawater that flooded in faster than the pumps could fight it back. They died in the cold and the dark, far below the waves, in the very tunnel that countless ordinary commuters now ride straight through every single day, most of them never knowing the price that was paid in the rock beneath their feet. Number 6. The Tanna Tunnel, 16 years and 67 lives. Through the mountains of Shizuoka runs the Tanna Tunnel. A railway bore almost 4.8 miles long, about 7,804 meters. On a map, it is a clean, simple straight line. In reality, it took from 1918 all the way to 1934 to dig, 16 brutal years, because the mountain fought back every step of the way. The rock was weak and it swelled inward against the men. Water poured in without warning. A major earthquake fault line cut directly across the planned path. In one cave-in alone, 16 men were killed where they stood. Another 17 were buried alive in the rubble, sealed into the dark, and were only reached after 7 straight days of desperate tunneling toward the sound of them. By the time the work was finally finished, 67 workers had died inside that mountain. Trains still pass through it today, smooth and fast and bright. The men who never came back out are still in there, somewhere in the rock on either side of the rails, exactly where the mountain took them. Number 5. The Sasago Tunnel, the day the ceiling came down. This one happened in our own lifetime, and it is the reason a lot of Japanese drivers will never fully relax inside a tunnel again. The Sasago Tunnel, west of Tokyo in Yamanashi Prefecture, opened in 1977 and looked perfectly ordinary. On the morning of December 2nd, 2012, with no warning at all, the concrete ceiling panels began to fall. Slabs 8 inches thick, each one weighing more than 2,600 pounds, over a metric ton, dropped onto the cars passing below across a stretch about 165 feet long. Several vehicles were crushed flat in an instant. A van carrying a group of young people in their 20s was pinned beneath the concrete and caught fire. 9 people died that morning, and the cause was almost worse than a freak accident because it turned out to be preventable. The bolts holding the heavy ceiling in place had been quietly corroding for years, and an inspection only months earlier had actually flagged the danger. Nothing was fixed in time. Some tunnels in this video are haunted by ghosts and old curses. This one is haunted by a signature that never got signed. Number 4. The Hokuriku Tunnel, trapped in the smoke. On the night of November 6th, 1972, an overnight express train was deep inside the Hokuriku Tunnel in Fukui Prefecture when a fire broke out in the dining car. What happened in the next few minutes changed Japanese rail safety forever. The crew followed the rules of the day and stopped the train inside the tunnel, and that single decision turned out to be fatal, because in a long tunnel there is nowhere for smoke to go. It filled the entire bore from wall to wall, a hot black fog with no way out. 30 people died that night, and more than 700 others were injured. And most of them were harmed not by the flames at all, but by that thick, choking smoke that turned the tunnel into a sealed chamber in the heart of the mountain. Travelers on that line still talk about the stretch of darkness where it happened, and the strange heaviness that settles over the carriage as the train slips inside, the unshakable feeling that the air in there still remembers exactly what once filled it. The Hokuriku fire killed 30 people in a single night. Now steady yourself, because number 3 took that same nightmare, a fire sealed inside a tunnel, and stretched it out across 3 entire days. Number 3. The Nihonzaka Tunnel, the fire that burned for 3 days. Also in Shizuoka, on the main expressway between Tokyo and Nagoya, lies the Nihonzaka Tunnel, about 1.3 miles long, around 2,045 meters. On the evening of July 11th, 1979, 2 trucks collided inside it, and the crash set off a chain reaction that is genuinely hard to picture. The pileup grew and grew until it involved well over 170 vehicles, jammed bumper to bumper in the dark. The fire that followed burned so ferociously that the tunnel's own sprinkler system failed under the heat, and the flames raged on for 3 full days before crews could finally put them out. To this day, it remains the largest tunnel fire in Japanese history. By something close to a miracle, only 7 people lost their lives in that inferno. But 7 is still 7, and the people who live nearby will tell you, flatly, that those spirits never left the long, dark stretch of road. The old advice is to roll your windows all the way up before you enter, officially because of the exhaust fumes. The other reason they give, the quieter one, is so that nothing can climb in and ride home with you. Drivers still report handprints appearing on the outside of the glass. Number 2. The Jomon Tunnel in Hokkaido, the one with people inside the walls. Far up north in Hokkaido, on an old rail line, the Jomon Tunnel was completed in 1914, and for decades it carried a rumor almost too dark to repeat. The word people whispered was hitobashira, which means human pillars. the old and genuinely terrible practice of sealing living people into a structure as a sacrifice to keep the gods of the mountain from tearing it back down. The locals murmured that the tunnel had been built that way, and then, in 1968, a powerful earthquake cracked the walls open, and repair crews went inside to fix the damage. In the walls, they found human skeletons, standing upright, sealed into the stone itself. The position of the bones suggested something the workers had not been buried after they died, but forced into that wall while they were still alive. More remains, over 100 laborers in total, were later found near the entrance and scattered in the woods nearby, the bones broken and showing signs of violence. A monument was eventually raised to honor the dead. The train crews who worked that line had been afraid of the tunnel for years. After 1968, they finally understood exactly why. Number 1. The Old Inunaki Tunnel in Fukuoka, the place Japan itself voted the most terrifying. We end on the one that tops every list. The Old Inunaki Tunnel in Fukuoka sits between two quiet towns and has been sealed shut at both ends with heavy blocks for decades. In a 2021 survey that asked people to name the single most frightening location in the entire country, this tunnel finished first, and there are layers to it. The legends say workers died building the original passage and were buried in its walls, and that on certain nights you can hear the screams of children echoing out of the stone. But Inunaki's true signature is stranger than any single ghost. People who go inside say that time itself stops working. Watches freeze. Phones die in your hand. Some swear they stepped in for only a couple of minutes and came back out to find that hours had vanished, that they entered in daylight and emerged into full dark. Footage filmed inside skips and jumps forward, missing minutes that no one can account for. And the only path leading away from the tunnel, the story claims, takes you to a village that appears on no map, a place where the laws of Japan no longer apply, and anything at all can happen to you. And underneath all of that folklore sits one real, documented horror. In 1988, a young man was taken to this tunnel by a group of others and killed, in a way too cruel to put into words here. The crime was so brutal that the authorities sealed the tunnel for good soon after. The blocks are still there today. People still climb past them anyway, drawn to the dark, and a great many of them come back changed and quieter and unwilling to say what it was they heard inside. 15 tunnels, and one thing every single one of them shares. A tunnel is an in-between place. You go in as one person, you come out the other side as someone slightly different, and for a few long seconds in the middle, there is nothing but the dark and whatever happens to be waiting in it with you. The Japanese have always kept a long memory for the dead, for the workers sealed into the walls, for the travelers lost to fire and smoke, for the ones the mountain simply decided to keep. Maybe that is the real reason locals refuse these roads after sundown. Not because they are sure that ghosts are real, but because they remember the people, every one of them, and they would honestly rather not meet them on a dark and narrow road. If you made it all the way to the end, do me a favor and tap the like button. It takes about 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps more people find these stories. And tell me down in the comments which of these 15 you would actually be brave enough to drive through at midnight, and which haunted tunnel near you I left off the list. There is far more of this hidden Japan where that came from, and we are only just getting started.